In this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through how to modify trip generation to test what happens to the highway traffic volumes when you do that. So hang on a minute and we'll get started on that. Okay, so the first thing to do is get to the application manager here and get to where you can see the scenarios. And then we're going to go to fiscally constrained LRP 2050, and then we're going to create a child. So add child, and I'm going to call this LRP 50 TripGen, and that's what we'll call it. All right, so I got this thing. Say OK, and all right, so now this thing is set up, and I just need to walk through and make sure that everything looks good. I shouldn't need to run Python. Well, maybe I do because it's a new scenario. If that doesn't work, we can try running it, and if it doesn't work for you, then we can copy the things into the right location. From a different run, you'd need to go to the IO directory and just copy that over, but we'll see how that works. I will not run it for right now so that we can see what happens when we get there. Okay, so looking through here, I don't want to change anything but trip generation, so lanes is all going to stay the same. All these things will stay the same. Park and ride stays the same. Transit, everything else stays the same. Don't see any reason to change that. Don't see any reason to change that. So that's all that we need to do. So I'm going to close that, and it'll say, do I want to create it? Yes, I do. Okay, so now for trip generation, you're going to come in here, double click trip generation, calculate productions and attractions. Okay, so that's what we need to do. So you go to this file right here, this .s file, double click that. Okay, so now we're looking through what we're doing. Seasonal, auto, marginal worker. I don't think we need to change any of these things. External trip ends, we could change these things. This is one way to increase the college trip table. If we can find where that is, we could increase the number of college trips. But mostly we want to just increase the trips in general to see what happens if we just make more trips. So I'm hunting down through here for productions and attraction equations. I will pause and tell you when I find it. Okay, so I have found the productions. So this is sort of like the home end of a trip, usually. And so here's home-based, internal, external, home-based work productions. I'm not sure why it's II plus IX, but I think this is pretty much everything. So let's just see what happens. So what we'll do is we'll take these things, and I could just increase them. I could take this number and make it a 2 instead of a 1. And what that's doing is it says that for all households with one worker, it's saying they go to work twice, or at a factor of 2 as opposed to 1. But I'm going to go ahead and leave like that, and instead I'll just multiply this by 2, because you can do about any kind of math you want here. So I'm going to do times 2 here, times 2 here, and times 2 here. And then for shopping, I want to say, well, if you're a household size 6, and I don't know what LC means. LC3, 1, 2, 3 might mean an income group. But let's say that this is times 10. times 10. Now another thing to pay attention to is when you're going to modify a script like this, it's modifying the script for everything that ever happens in the model for all different scenarios. So what you need to do is remember that you might change. So you need to have some kind of a code here that you can search on to be able to find this. And so I did added times 2 to all of these, and then I need to do it again, and then I need to come down here and times 10, because if you don't do that, then it'll pretty quickly you'll lose track that you did that, and you won't be able to find where you made the change at. And this is, you also need to write yourself a note somewhere else that says I changed this thing, because the minute you go to run another scenario, it'll now be running off of this new value, and maybe you're only intended that value to be applicable to one scenario. Okay, so that's the productions. Now let's go into attractions. So here's where attractions are. Home-based work, home-based shopping. So you can see 3.6 times retail. So people only go shopping at retail and food jobs. They don't go shopping at office jobs or health jobs. That's why these are all 0. And so I want them to go shopping twice as often as they did before. So I'm going to say times 2. And then I'm going to add my little might change, added times 2. And I want them to eat out twice as often as they used to as well. So this is also going to be times 2, times 2, like that. And then for jobs, I want them to go mining a lot more. So I'm going to say times 10 here. So we'll see if there's a lot more mining that's going on. I have no idea. But we'll change that too. So I'm going to add a mic change here, times 10. And that's it. So I'm going to hit save and close. And then I can go right click, go to parent. So now I've got a new scenario. I guess I do need to change something about this, because I'm pretty sure what will happen is if I don't change the scenario network name, then it'll have the same name as the previous 2050. So I need to just call this TripGen. TripGen is the name that I need to give that right there. So save, and I want to show you something that'll make this test run faster. It's a tweak to make it not run as many loops through distribution feedback, because when I ran it, it ran a full 10 loops, and I only wanted it to run like 4. Let me show you how you can get it to do that. So you go to distribution, distribution feedback loop. There's probably a better way to do this, but I'm pretty sure this way will work. So when you go to check for convergence, you open the script file right here. And so then you go down and you're looking for a test for convergence. It's right here. Test for convergence. If n, which is the number of iterations, is greater than 2, and if convergence criteria is greater than 95%, then you're going to set feedback loop convergence equal to 1. Another thing you can do is you can also just copy this and say if n is greater than 4, and then forget about this other part, whether it's reached 95% or not. Then you just say FB loop is greater than that. And then what I like to do is I like to put in here a note that says mic change, remove later, or something like that. So this way, at least if you or some other person eventually reads this code, they'll say, how did this happen? And they'll know it was all you were doing something to try and make it go faster. So now this will make it so it'll say, okay, well, I'm on iteration 5 and I haven't met my convergence criteria, but then it'll go in here and say, oh, you're on iteration 5? Well, then just stop. Just pretend like the convergence criteria was equal to 1, and then we'll break out of this loop. And that's what the next part of the script says. So if we come to here, check convergence, it says right here, this is a great big long one-line script that the only thing it does is this one thing. It just says if convergence is equal to 1, then break. So that means get out of the loop and go on to the next part of the model. All right, that's all I'm going to show you. So if you do that now before you run your model, it'll make your model run faster. I think I can run it now and we'll see what happens. So okay, so it is running now. I'm suspicious that it's going to stop though when it reaches something about transit, because it will not find the walk buffer from Python, and then I will have to go and manually try to move that, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute when it gets there. Okay, so you can see that my model is still running and it's well into distribution now. It looks like it's going to keep working, but I'm suspicious it still won't because I didn't run the walk buffer Python script. So I came in here to try to figure out what's going on. I came to my scenario directory. Here's inputs, model scripts, and I'm looking at my 2050, which is an old run, the one that I'm going to compare to, and it has a file called walk buffer. I'm going to hit Control C because I'm pretty sure that file is not in this other location. Here's the directory I just created, TripGen, input processing. So I look down through here, go down to the W's, and sure enough, I do not see a walk buffer file. So I'm going to hit Control V and just put it in there. There it is. So now hopefully my model won't crash. All this walk buffer is it's telling you how much of a traffic analysis zone is within walkable range of a transit stop. And since I haven't changed anything about transit, then it's fine to use the same file again. And so that's that. I'll continue this in a minute when it's done running. Okay, now I have run the model with the new trip generation, and I'm going to see what happened. So one of the things I'm coming to here is I'm going into scenarios, LRP 2050 TripGen, and I've got this file tripends.dbf, and I'm going to look at the same one and the other one and compare them within Excel. One thing that's crummy about DBF files is that they don't open directly in Excel anymore. Like you can't click it and it's not an option. So you have to first open Excel and then browse to it and it will open. So I'm just going to do it like that, and I'll hit pause while I do that. Alright, so I've now browsed to it and I'm going to try to open it. DBF is one of the options, or you can just hit all files and it'll show up. Now it's there. Open. And ta-da, it opens up. So now I'm going to open the other one. File, open, and I'll just hit pause while I do that too. Okay, so just so you make sure you find it, I'm in LRP 2050, and then the next scenario is LRP 2050 TripGen. So I have to go here, then I have to go into TripGen, and this is where it is in this case. I don't think it'll open actually because it has the same name, so I'll probably have to change it. I'm just going to call this one TG for trip ends, or for the trip generation specific that I was doing. Okay, so that's good. So now I'm going to right click, move or copy to the other file, and now I've got both of them in here and I can compare them. So I'm going to set up a comparison. Okay, so now I've set up a compare, and the first thing I'm going to do is delete this and say equals TripGen G, I think this was the one, minus the same spot there. And nope, I selected E, but I meant D. So I'm just going to change this to D and this one to D also, so that I have the right one. Then I'm going to hit Shift End arrow, Shift End down, and paste, Control V. Now this shows every place that the value is different than it was previously. And you can see that under productions for home-based work and attractions, that seems to be where most of the differences are. There's also significant differences in whatever these things are. They look like they're connected to home-based work also most of the time. So that's good, because that is what I changed. And you can also see that they're usually positive, which means that there's more trips than there were before, and that makes sense because I multiplied by 2 and I also multiplied by 10 in some cases. So that's what you've got. So I'm going to just it helps. This is another Excel trick that what it will do. I'll do conditional formatting, highlight rule cells that are greater than, and then let's just put some number greater than 100. And then I'm also going to do it again, highlight cells that are greater than 10, and I'm going to highlight those with yellow, and let's see if it worked. Okay, it kind of worked, but it kind of didn't, because now the yellow is overriding my red. So what I need to do is come over here and conditional formatting, manage rules, and it's got this one and this one, and all I need to do is, I think, move that up. So how do I do that? Let me think. Okay, it's this arrow right here. So now I moved that one up and this one's on the bottom, and when I hit go, this time it worked. So now I can see pretty plainly the zones that have a pretty big difference, those that have a difference but it's not huge, and then I didn't even color the ones that have no difference. But I could have done a negative. I should probably do like a negative, because that's also very important for debugging, to find out if you've got bad data, is places where something went unusually large or small, and then you got to go look at them and validate that what happened is what you thought should have happened. So anyway, that's pretty good. So now we can see the comparison. That's all I wanted to show you with that. This same type of thing is also something you could put in GIS and look at the differences in. You could put it in 3D even and see vertical extrusions of how much taller a zone gets in the difference, to show you what your change made. Next, I want to do a network comparison. We've done this so many times already, but it's it's like super useful, so I'm going to just do it. So I'm going to go here, get the loaded 2050 summary network, and go up here to compare assignments. And I think that's probably already here. I'll try to Yeah, it's already there. So this is the file. It's already there. So I don't need to copy that one again. But what I do need to do is copy this one, which is now named 2050 TripGen, because I named it that when I ran the model the first time. And then we come up here to compare assignments, put it in. I'm going to grab the name, going to open up the file, compare to assignments, open. You just need to open it in any text editor. Okay, here I am. So the one that I want at the time is pretty similar to the top one. So I'm just going to paste the name right there for a minute. I'm going to comment out these things. Then I'm going to take this and I'll just override that one right there. Actually, I think I want this one on the top and this one on the bottom. It'll make a difference in which colors turn red and which ones turn green. And so I'm going to do like that. And I don't want this here anymore because that'll cause a crash. And so then I have to say compare TG50, because that's my first one, versus 50. That is what I want. So now I have to uncomment this so that it'll recognize it. Hit save, and then I can run it. Right click, show, open with what? Open with Cube-Voyager. I think the little red one right there. Yep, so here it is, and go. And it runs super fast in like just seconds. And then let's see if I can see where'd it go? There it is. Compare TG 50 versus regular 50. Open. Then right click to open that into Cube. And alright, so that's what it did. So all of that stuff that I did to trip generation caused more overall trips. That's why it turned red. It would have been green if I'd have listed the other network as the first network. So then another thing you can do now is look at overall trips from any given zone. So you can come here, post a node. Let's just do that, append node n less than 1,000. That's generally where the zones are. I don't know if there's other things that are not zones, but there's that. And then I should also have, well, let's see what I've got. So if I click on one of the nodes, one of the zones, it shows over here all of the total demographics, employment, all the different kinds of, oh, it does show productions and attractions. Okay, so this is an output of the model then, where it shows productions and attractions, home-based work, home-based, or yeah, the productions for work, productions for, okay, so within this network, I'm not going to be able to see it because I would have to write a script that subtracts one from the other in order to see the difference. Right now, all this is saying is this is the value probably from the first network. I'll bet it's not the second network. If I was going to have it in the second network, I'd have to modify the script to show that in it, but we won't do that right now. Well, maybe I will. Give me a minute. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and try this. So I've got production home-based work and attraction home-based work. Those are the things that I'm interested in seeing in the comparison network. So I'm going to do that right now. So I go to this thing, and so what it shows is I've got network 1 is including these fields that are link fields, not node fields. This network 2 is also including link fields. But then when I come to this third run PGM highway net, I'm bringing in network 1 and 2, both of which have their respective home-based work productions on the node field. And then I just have to do a phase equal node merge. So I'm going to try that. Phase equals node merge. And then at the end I'll have to do an end phase. So end phase. And then it will do a phase equal link merge. So then I need something that looks a lot like this, where I say P, well, I'll just do PHBW1 home-based work 1 equals not LI because that means link input, but I'm doing NI because that means node input. And I guess I'll just do an underscore here because it's like that. So then I'll do right there, and then this is going to be called 2, and this is coming from the second network. Okay, so then can do the same thing for attractions. So I'm going to just change this to say, actually in this this thing, this gives me the ability to find P underscore and replace with A underscore for all selected text within the current file. Yep, I only want to do that selected text, replace all, and it changed that. So if you have an easy way to do that, that's a really nice thing. It looks correct, so now I'm gonna just run this. Oh no, I don't think it'll show up because it's not part of the include right here. So I think I might have to include these. I don't know if I have to include them specifically as nodes or not. I'm gonna try it and see what happens. So let me go like this. 2, and then I have to change this to A and this to A. Now what might happen is that just adds these fields as a link attribute that's empty when it needed to be a node attribute. And if that's the case, I need to figure out what to do to get it to show up as a node. But anyway, it should be good enough now that I can run it, and then we'll see. Okay, so I've opened this up and looking at the result now. Let me zoom into this area. A place where I know that there's jobs would be like right in here. And I can see when I click on a highway link that I've got, if I go down to the bottom, well, I guess is it at the bottom? It's right here. I've got production home-based work 1, home-based work 2. So these are the fields that I created. They did show up as link fields when I meant them to show up as node fields because they don't make any sense on a link. Production and attraction is a zone feature, it's not a link feature. So basically I get 0 here because there wasn't anything to do. But let's see what happens when I click on a zone. So there's a zone, and looking down through here, I had production and attraction right here was 1445. If I go down to the bottom, aha. So this says production underscore home base work 1, 1445. 2 was 704. Attraction was this, and that one was that. So it is roughly double, which was what I did. On some zones I said times 2. Part of the reason it's not exactly double is because it has to go through a balancing routine, and balancing will smooth things out across the region and make it so that it's not quite double, or it could be a little more than double, but it won't be exactly double. So anyway, it worked. I don't know why I have the same attributes as link attributes. I'd probably have to read up on script writing and modify that a little bit. But it still did what I wanted, and it got the data onto the node where I can now export it to GIS or a spreadsheet or whatever and have them right next to each other to work with. So there you go. You've got your now pros and how to use this thing.